Chapter 22. Mary. Mary walked beside Henry to the sheriff's office, nervous anticipation rolling about in her stomach. She hoped this would work and the customers would return to his store. She didn't know what she would do if it didn't. Clyde was with them so he could tell the sheriff exactly what Beth had said, but Elizabeth had stayed back at the store.
"Sheriff, we need a word,"
Henry said when they reached the door. The sheriff stood, and his eyes traveled between the three of them.
"What can I do for you, Mr. Brown?" "Clyde here has some information about the break-in at Mr. Jones's store," Henry said. "Does he now? All right, let's hear it."
As Clyde recounted the story, the sheriff's eyes narrowed and then hardened.
"This is quite an accusation, Mr. Seymour. Are you sure?"
Clyde held up his hands.
"I'm as sure as I can be that what I've told you is what Beth told me."
The sheriff nodded.
"Then I suppose we better pay Mr. Thompson a visit to see if it checks out."
He turned to Mary.
"You can stay here."
"I will not," Mary said indignantly, surprised at the strength in her voice. "This break-in has affected my reputation and the business of those I care for. If he has something to hide, I want to be there when you confront him." The sheriff lifted a brow at Henry as if asking him to step in, but Henry just smiled and shook his head.
"I'm not telling her she has to stay back. She has just as much stake in this as I do."
"Fine," the sheriff said with a sigh.
"But you stay behind me and let me do the talking."
He stepped out ahead of them, and the group traveled down the street to the bank. As they made an interesting group, people began to step out of buildings and follow them to see what the commotion was. By the time they reached the bank, their group of 4 had grown to at least 10. Mr. Thompson's eyes widened in surprise when they stepped through the door. He looked from Henry to Mary and back to the sheriff before speaking.
"Hello, Sheriff. What can I do for you?" "Well, Mr. Thompson, I'm hoping you'll make this easy for me. I've received word that you have the stolen goods from Mr. Jones's store at your house. Is that true?"
Mr. Thompson's eyes widened and his face turned red.
"That's ridiculous," he blustered. "Why would I steal from Mr. Jones? I loaned him the money to open the store. Stealing from him would be like stealing from myself." "Unless you knew you were going to get it back," Henry said, "like when you offered to buy my store today."
The sheriff's brow lifted.
"You offered to buy his store?" "I was trying to do him a favor," Mr. Thompson said. "This incident has cost him business, and I have the money, so I figured I would help a fellow man out."
Henry snorted and shook his head.
"If you had wanted to help me out, you would have approved the loan I asked for, not threatened me if I didn't sell you my store."
The sheriff looked from Henry to Mr. Thompson as the tension thickened in the air.
"I think, Mr. Thompson, that all things considered, we need to take a look in your house. And if I refuse, then I'm afraid I'll have to put you in jail until I can get a search warrant. I can't have you destroying or getting rid of property if it's there. I'm sure you understand. Of course, a search warrant has to be signed by a judge, and we don't have one in Sage Creek, so that means you'll have to sit in jail for a few days."
Mr. Thompson took on the look of a fish as his mouth opened and closed as he processed the information. Finally, he sighed.
"Fine. The merchandise is in my house. I'll return it to the store and pay for the broken window." "I'm afraid that won't be enough," the sheriff said. "Your theft has affected the livelihood of Mr. Brown and the reputation of Miss Lockwood. Therefore, I believe restitution for lost business will be paid to Mr. Brown, and a public apology will be issued."
Mr. Thompson's eyes widened, and he slapped his hands on his desk.
"A public apology? Do you know what that will do to me?"
The sheriff folded his arms across his chest.
"I imagine it will do the same thing to you that it did to Mr. Brown and Miss Lockwood, but that is my offer. If you don't take it, I'll be forced to take this case to the judge for a public trial, which I'm sure will damage your reputation even further."
A look of pure hatred flashed across Mr. Thompson's face, but he finally agreed, and Mary sighed with relief. She hoped this was finally over.